Welcome back to Hardware Unboxed. Today we are revisiting the Radeon RX 5700 XT with a 33 game benchmark, and for comparison I will be including its old nemesis, the GeForce RTX 2060 Super. However, I have also included the RTX 3060 as well, given that it currently costs $400 US, which was the MSRP for both the 5700 XT and 2060 Super. And as of this month, the 5700 XT is now a 3-year-old product, so I am very intrigued to see how it stacks up to a similarly priced GeForce product in 2022. But before we do, today's sponsor spot is brought to you by ASUS's latest range of ROG anime peripherals. The new ROG Strix Flare 2 anime gaming mechanical keyboard features an anime matrix LED display, 8000Hz polling rate, ROG NX mechanical switches or Cherry MX switches, swappable switches, metal media controls, and a wrist rest with light diffuser. And there's also the new ROG Delta S Anime lightweight gaming headset with a customizable anime matrix display, Hi-Fi ESS 9281 quad DAC, AI noise cancelling mic, and is compatible with PC, PlayStation 5, and Nintendo Switch. So for more information, please check the link in the video description. Okay, so about a year ago now, I revisited this battle with a 30 game benchmark, and found that on average the Radeon GPU was 15% faster than the RTX 2060 Super. So once again, it will be interesting to see how they compare today, and of course we do have a number of new games to test with. Now, this video will be focusing exclusively on rasterization performance, as the 5700 XT does not support ray tracing. Personally, I don't believe the ray tracing performance of the 2060 Super to be all that useful, but of course opinions will vary there. But for example, the RTX 2060 Super is only good for 59 FPS on average in Cyberpunk 2077 at 1440p using the very dialed down medium quality preset. So enabling ray tracing is going to result in a very sub 60 FPS experience, and I'm really not interested in that at this price point. In any case, there's really no point comparing them with just the 2060 Super using ray tracing, as that would be somewhat unfair on the GeForce GPU. Moreover, if you require ray tracing support, well, that makes or would have made the buying decision a lot easier. You'd obviously get the GeForce graphics card, and I said that at the time. Now, another advantage of the 2060 Super is DLSS, and as good as DLSS is, it's becoming less and less of a key selling point for modern GeForce GPUs thanks to the release and continued progress of FSR, which is now in its second revision. DLSS is still the superior technology, but it's really not that much better, and FSR 2.0 support has been quite rapid. Anyway, I won't be including any DLSS or FSR testing either, rather I'll be sticking to native performance, as it's just a lot cleaner and far less subjective. Also, it's worth noting that the image quality of these upscaling technologies does vary quite a lot from title to title, as well as the various tested resolutions. Now, the point of today's video is to create an updated comparison between these two GPUs in over 30 games, many of which are new titles such as Forza Horizon 5, Sniper Elite 5, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, Dying Light 2, God of War, Halo Infinite, Rainbow Six Extraction, and F1 22, for example. So with that, let's go over the test setup, and then we'll jump into the blue bar graphs. All testing has been conducted on our Ryzen 9 5800X 3D test system using 32GB of DDR4 3200CL14 memory, along with the latest available display drivers. Again, 33 games have been tested at 1080p and 1440p, and we'll take a close look at the data from around a dozen of the titles before jumping into the usual breakdown graphs. Please note all graphs will be made available to Floatplane and Patreon members. Okay, let's get into it. Starting with the new first-person shooter, Hunt Showdown, we find that all three GPUs delivered basically the exact same level of performance, using the high-quality preset or managed to push well over 100 FPS, though at 1440p we're looking at more like 80 FPS on average, so still a great experience, but not ideal for those of you with high refresh rate monitors. It's impressive to see the 5700 XT not only hanging in there, but also matching the RTX 3060 in a brand new title. The God of War data is also very impressive. Here we have another new and very much cutting edge title, and the 5700 XT can be seen basically matching the RTX 3060, which also meant it was able to keep pace with the RTX 2060 Super. Again, we're looking at well over 100 FPS at 1080p, this time using the original quality preset, which is more of a medium type setting. Now, Assassin's Creed Valhalla might be an AMD-sponsored title, but it works very well with GeForce GPUs, especially after Nvidia sorted out their performance issues last year. However, Assassin's Creed Valhalla also responds very well to resizable bar, and this is currently a weakness of GeForce GPUs in most games that support this feature well. We see that although the RTX 2060 Super and RTX 3060 are comparable in terms of performance, the 5700 XT is massively faster, delivering almost 30% more performance at 1080p and 23% more at 1440p. That is a significant performance advantage that resulted in a very noticeable improvement to the gaming experience. Another game that responds well to enabling resizable bar is Forza Horizon 5, and boy does the 5700 XT blow away the RTX 3060 and in particular the 2060 Super here. At 1080p, the Radeon GPU was 25% faster than the 3060 and a massive 34% faster than the 2060 Super. And that margin didn't change much at 1440p, where the 5700 XT was still 33% faster, pushing up well over 100 FPS. The 5700 XT also powered ahead in Death Stranding, beating the RTX 3060 by a 21% margin at 1080p and then 20% at 1440p. Again, it easily brushed the RTX 2060 Super aside, with 30% more frames at 1080p and 28% more at 1440p. Granted, all tested GPUs did perform well in this title using the very high quality settings, but for a truly high refresh rate experience, the old 5700 XT held up rather well. Moving on to Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, again the 5700 XT can be seen on top, delivering 86 FPS at 1080p, making it 8% faster than the RTX 3060 and 16% faster than the 2060 Super. So while the performance is somewhat comparable to the new RTX 3060, it is much faster than its $400 US competitor in the RTX 2060 Super. Next up, we have another 2022 release in Dying Light 2, and again, the 5700 XT is here to show the RTX 3060 who's boss. This is also a title that does support ray tracing, and the effects can look very nice, but with just 64 FPS with the RTX 3060 and 59 FPS for the 2060 Super using the high quality preset, I'm not sure you'd want to drop frame rates further with RTFX. Then at 1440p, we're looking at well below 60 FPS for the GeForce GPUs, and although the 5700 XT only managed 51 FPS, it was still 9% faster than the RTX 3060 and a massive 24% faster than the RTX 2060 Super. Sniper Elite 5 is yet another new 2022 title, and again, the 5700 XT finds itself well out in front, delivering 112 FPS on average at 1080p, making it 17% faster than the GeForce GPUs at both tested resolutions. That's a big performance difference, and at 1440p those extra frames were certainly very noticeable. Watch Dogs Legion is an Nvidia-sponsored title, but that doesn't really seem to matter. The 5700 XT was still 16% faster than the RTX 3060 at 1080p, and 20% faster than the 2060 Super. Then at 1440p, the Radeon GPU was 11% faster than the 3060 and 18% faster than the 2060 Super, using the slightly dialed down, very high quality preset. Cyberpunk 2077 is another game that uses ray tracing effects quite well, certainly one of the best examples in my opinion. However, with this class of GPU, visual quality compromises really do need to be made in order to enable RTFX. For example, we're only using the medium quality preset here, and while the game still looks pretty good, it is noticeably worse than high or ultra. At 1440p, we're looking at 67 FPS with the 5700 XT, which made it 6% faster than the RTX 3060 and 14% faster than the 2060 Super. This means when using the medium quality preset at 1440p with RTFX enabled, you'd be looking at well below 60 FPS. Can't say I was ever sold on ray tracing for mid-range to low-end Turing GPUs. The Hitman 3 data is rather interesting, as this title supports variable rate shading, and this feature can be used by the RTX 3060 and the RTX 2060 Super, but not the 5700 XT, as it doesn't include hardware support. So VRS is disabled on the Radeon GPU, while the VRS quality option was used for the GeForce GPUs. Now, despite this, the 5700 XT still beat both GPUs at 1080p and roughly matched the RTX 2060 Super at 1440p, trailing the RTX 3060 by an 11% margin. So not a bad result overall. As I understand it, VRS does little to nothing to improve performance in Hitman 3, which will no doubt disappoint those who 3 years ago claimed that the 5700 XT was a terrible investment due to the lack of VRS and DirectX 12 Ultimate features. The 5700 XT performed well in Far Cry 6, delivering 141 FPS at 1080p, which saw it lead the RTX 3060 by a 22% margin and the 2060 Super by a 26% margin. It was much the same at 1440p, 18% faster than the RTX 3060 and 24% faster than the RTX 2060 Super, so an easy win here for the old 5700 XT. The Halo Infinite results look a lot like what we saw when testing Hunt Showdown. Basically, performance is very similar across all three tested GPUs, though here the 5700 XT does have a slight performance advantage, particularly over the 2060 Super. We're looking at a 7% increase at 1080p and a 6% increase at 1440p, so small gains over the 2060 Super and probably not enough where you would notice the difference, but again, it is impressive to see the 5700 XT matching the RTX 3060. And the last game I'm going to look at the individual data for is Rainbow Six Siege using the medium quality preset. Again, the 5700 XT managed to edge out the RTX 3060, though we're only talking about a mere 3 to 5%. However, when compared to the 2060 Super, the 5700 XT is clearly faster, offering 16% more performance at 1080p and 18% more at 1440p. Okay, so here's a look at how the Radeon RX 5700 XT and GeForce RTX 2060 Super stacked up across all 33 games tested at 1440p. As you can see, 3 years later, the 5700 XT still has the 2060 Super's number, beating it on average by a 13% margin. So basically the same as the 15% margin seen last year with a largely different sample of games. There's just a single example where the 5700 XT lost by greater than a 5% margin, but 24 examples where it was faster by more than a 5% margin, 8 of which saw a margin of 20% or greater. Now this is the really impressive part. As I noted earlier, at the time of making this video, the RTX 3060 costs $400 US, which was the MSRP of the 5700 XT. But here we see that on average, the much older Radeon GPU was 6% faster on average, and again we see multiple instances of 20% plus gains, with just 3 examples of the 5700 XT losing by a 10% or greater margin, with the biggest loss being 13% in the Outer Worlds. Not bad, I'd say, especially for ancient technology that doesn't support DirectX 12 Ultimate. So there you have it, the Radeon RX 5700 XT and GeForce RTX 2060 Super battle in 2022, along with some RTX 3060 data in there for good measure. It is impressive to see that both GPUs still perform very well, offering an exceptional 1080p experience with solid 1440p performance if you're willing to dial down those quality settings just a little bit. As for which one of these GPUs gamers should have bought back in 2019, I think the answer is pretty obvious now. Not only has the 5700 XT stood the test of time, but with hindsight, we now know that it was the right play. And in fact, because of that, no gamer should still own one today. That's because last year, and for the better part of this year, 5700 XT owners could have essentially traded in their used graphics card for a brand new 6700 XT. In fact, back in January, the average sale price on eBay was $815, down from $900 in December, and just over $1,000 in November. Meanwhile, during the same period, you could buy a 6700 XT at scalper prices on eBay for $866 in January, $897 in December, and $980 in November, basically making the upgrade a straight swap. And that's not bad after 2 years. Meanwhile, during the same period, 2060 Supers were selling for $648 in January, $677 in December, and $700 in November. That's 30% less than that of the 5700 XT, despite them originally costing the same amount back in 2019. And that means 2060 Super owners couldn't even sell their GPU for a side grade with an RTX 3060, at least not without spending a bit more cash. So the 5700 XT and 2060 Super battle is a classic example of why you should almost always buy what offers you the most value right now, rather than bank on future-proofing. The truth is, we knew from day one that the 2060 Super was based on a more forward-thinking architecture. Not only does Turing support ray tracing and DLSS, but it also supports DirectX 12 Ultimate features, as well as sampler feedback, variable rate shading, and mesh shaders. But now that we're 3 years down the track, how much of a key role have these features played? And really, that question does answer itself. We're still yet to see many of these features properly used, and we're certainly still yet to see a game that leverages them to a degree that cripples the 5700 XT, excluding ray tracing, of course, which simply doesn't work at all. But as I've said, I don't feel the ray tracing support of the RTX 2060 Super is or was a key selling point, as you're at best looking at a heavily compromised experience, either in terms of visuals by having to downgrade other quality settings, or the frame rate, which often drops well below 60 FPS. And look, ray tracing support was always questionable on Turing, period. And today we believe it really requires at least an RTX 3080 to enjoy properly. And after numerous detailed investigations and careful consideration, no one is going to change our mind on that. DLSS, on the other hand, is an excellent feature that will often prove highly beneficial for the 2060 Super at 1440p and even help achieve playable performance at 4K in some instances. So that is a killer feature that's certainly worth considering when buying your next GPU. However, as I noted earlier, FSR 2.0, while not quite as good, is very close, and in many situations the difference is so small, gamers won't actually be able to tell them apart. So while we still consider DLSS the superior feature, it's certainly less of a key feature today than it was a year or more ago. All of that said, as it stands in mid-2022, the Radeon RX 5700 XT is the superior performer and will provide the most value in the vast majority of games. Having said all of that, you probably shouldn't have one anymore. They should have all been sold to miners and then eventually sold back to gamers at a much lower price. Really, the only potential knock of the 5700 XT is the lack of ray tracing, but again, I've given my opinion on that. But look, if you want or care about ray tracing support, then the RTX 2060 Super was the obvious choice. But again, I've already made my opinion clear on that one. It'll be really for you to decide which one is best for you. It's disappointing to see that 3 years later, the $400 price point hasn't moved that much in terms of price versus performance, at least from Nvidia. You can still snag a Radeon RX 6600 XT for $320, though that's basically 5700 XT performance for a small discount 3 years later. Though the 6700 XT is just 8% more expensive and offers around 30% more performance, so that would have been great, I suppose, if we were talking about it 2 years ago now. And that is going to do it for this GPU revisit. If you like this video, you know what to do. Subscribe for more content. And if you'd like to become a Hardware Unboxed community member, Hardware Unboxed member, then check out Floatplane Patreon. Links are in the video description. You get access to our monthly live streams. Tim and I get together and we chat about whatever's going on. We have a Discord server, so lots of Hardware Unboxed members on there. It's a great place to hang out and talk tech and, well, a whole heap of other things. There's a lot of channels on there. Behind the scenes content. Tim's building a new studio, some cool stuff there, and Q&As. So if you're interested, check that out, but if not, perfectly fine. And I would like to thank you for watching this video. I'm your host, Steve, and I'll see you again next time.